I jolted awake to the sound of folding chairs scraping against gravel. For a fleeting moment, I thought it was a dream, but when I peered out my window, the reality hit me like a slap. A convoy of gleaming SUVs had invaded my field, parked right beside my barn, and smack in the center of my land stood a woman in a bright pink power suit, clutching a clipboard like it was her scepter. Vanessa Reed, the self-proclaimed queen of the local HOA and a relentless pest for the past 2 years, was orchestrating a full-blown HOA meeting on my property as if she owned every inch of it. I stormed outside, my boots crunching the brittle grass. "What the hell is this?" I barked, but my voice was swallowed by the crackle of a microphone springing to life. "Attention, everyone. Welcome to our emergency HOA meeting." Vanessa's voice boomed across my farm, followed by a smattering of polite applause as a dozen prim suburbanites settled into their seats like they were at a fancy picnic. I marched up to her podium. "Get off my land." Vanessa didn't even blink. She adjusted her pearl necklace and flashed that infuriatingly fake smile. "Oh, Lucas, we figured you wouldn't mind. Your farm's right next to our community, and we've got urgent matters to address." I crossed my arms. "You've got no authority here." She smirked, tilting her head. "Well, that's debatable. Your property impacts our home values, and as a responsible community, we're committed to upholding a certain standard." I glanced at her posse, nodding in agreement. One guy even pulled out a notebook like he was documenting her every word. Vanessa pointed at my barn. "Take that building, for instance. It's an eyesore. Have you considered a nice beige repaint?" I blinked. "Are you seriously critiquing my barn?" A woman in the crowd piped up, nose wrinkled. "And the smell? You really should do something about that manure." I stared at them, my patience fraying. "It's a farm. What do you expect? Rose petals and cupcakes." Vanessa ignored me, flipping a page on her clipboard. "Anyway, we've drafted some guidelines for properties bordering our community. We'll submit them to the county board for review." I snatched the clipboard from her. The list was insane. Fencing rules, no livestock within 100 feet of their precious neighborhood, weekly lawn mowing. "Are you out of your mind?" She huffed, pulling a spare copy from her bag. "It's just common sense, Lucas. Our home values are tanking, and frankly, it's because of this." She waved dismissively at my land like my entire life offended her. I took a deep breath, fighting the fury bubbling inside. "So, let me get this straight. You're holding a meeting on my farm to tell me how to run my own property." That smug smile widened. "Exactly. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have business to attend to." She turned back to her crowd, rattling off nonsense about approved paint colors and landscaping standards. I stood there, gripping the clipboard until my knuckles whitened. This farm had been in my family for generations. My granddad built it from scratch, and now some suburban tyrant thought she could waltz in and dictate terms. A slow, wicked grin spread across my face. Fine. She wanted a fight? I'd give her one, a taste of farm life she'd never forget. I spun on my heel, headed for the barn, and hatched a plan, a loud, messy, glorious goat auction. The auction day arrived fast, and it was perfect chaos. Word had spread through the farming community, and by noon, my land was packed with trucks, trailers, and livestock. Goats of every kind, big, small, fluffy, scruffy, some looking like they were scheming, filled the air with an unholy racket of bleating that'd make any city slicker's head spin. My buddy Travis, the auctioneer, stood on a rickety platform, tipping his cowboy hat and testing his mic. "All right, folks, we've got a prime lineup of goats today. Who's ready to bid?" His voice thundered over the speakers, and the crowd roared. Farmers, ranchers, even some curious locals buzzing with excitement. I leaned against my truck, watching it all unfold with a smug grin. The cherry on top? I'd staged this madness right outside Vanessa's pristine cul-de-sac mansion. Her flawless lawn was now the backdrop to the wildest livestock show of the year. It didn't take long for Vanessa to react. She burst out of her house like a fury unleashed, her pastel suit impeccable, pearls glinting, but her face a mask of rage. She stomped across her yard, heels sinking into the turf, and halted just shy of the platform. "What is the meaning of this?" she screeched, her voice slicing through the din. Travis didn't miss a beat. "This, ma'am, is a good old-fashioned goat auction. Welcome. Vanessa's expression twisted in horror as she took in the scene. Goats everywhere, some tethered, some paraded by buyers, others just reveling in their natural disorder. A massive goat named Lord Percival had climbed onto a picnic table, surveying the chaos like royalty. She whirled on me. "Lucas, this is outrageous. You can't do this." I crossed my arms, feigning innocence. "Why not? I'm just running a legal business on my land, like you did with your little meeting." She floundered for a retort, but a voice from the crowd cut in. "Look at the legs on that one. I'll start at $50. Travis leapt in. "We've got 50. Do I hear 75? The bidding erupted, hands flying up. These farmers weren't just here for revenge, they meant business. Vanessa's fists clenched. "This is a residential area. You're disturbing the peace." A guy in overalls chuckled nearby. "Lady, it's Saturday afternoon. You should thank us for the show." She ignored him, yanking out her phone. "I'm calling the police." I shrugged. "Go ahead. I've got permits." She froze, realizing I wasn't bluffing, then turned to her HOA cronies gawking from the sidewalk. "Do something," she snapped. They didn't budge. Worse, some looked intrigued. A woman in a floral top raised her hand. How much for the little gray one with the floppy ears?" Vanessa's jaw dropped. Linda. Linda shrank, but kept eyeing the goat. "My granddaughter loves animals." Vanessa's face turned a furious crimson, but before she could erupt, another player entered the fray, the city inspector. He stepped out of his car, clipboard in hand, looking official and mildly irritated. "I got a complaint about unauthorized commercial activity in a residential zone," he announced. Vanessa pointed at me like I was a felon. "Yes, him. Shut this down now." The inspector surveyed the lively auction, sighed, then checked his notes. "Actually, Mr. Bennett," he nodded at me, "has all the proper permits. Everything's legal." Vanessa's glare could have melted steel. "What? That's impossible." He adjusted his glasses. "What's impossible is holding an HOA meeting on private property without permission." Silence fell. Vanessa paled. What? He flipped through his papers. "Several residents complained about your unauthorized use of farmland. That's a zoning violation." He glanced at her house. "Also, I see you've added that fancy patio. No permits for that either, another violation." The HOA crowd shifted awkwardly. Vanessa tried to rally. "This is absurd. You're targeting me when he's turning our neighborhood into a zoo." A goat bleated in agreement, and someone snickered. The inspector sighed. "I enforce the law, ma'am. You've got more violations than he does." He handed her a notice. "Fix these by month's end, or you'll face fines." She snatched it, fuming. The auction rolled on, bids soaring, goats selling like hotcakes. Then came the knockout blow. Travis clapped his hands. "Folks, we've got a special sale. Miss Daisy, one of our finest." The crowd buzzed, but the real shock was Vanessa's husband, Paul, stepping forward. "I'll take her." Vanessa spun so fast she nearly toppled. "Paul, don't you dare." He shrugged, looking weary yet oddly calm. "I've always wanted a pet goat." Laughter exploded. Vanessa looked ready to combust, but Miss Daisy was already being led to Paul's yard. Game over. I leaned against my truck, watching the sun dip low, casting a golden hue over the chaos. Vanessa stormed inside. The HOA scattered, and the auction hummed into the evening. Best business move I'd ever made. The aftermath was pure gold. When Vanessa slammed her door, hard enough to scare off a flock of birds, the crowd's mood flipped from amusement to jubilation. People shook my hand, slapped my back, and hailed it the greatest HOA takedown ever. Even some of her loyalists cracked smiles, whispering that maybe Vanessa had gone too far for too long. Paul, now Miss Daisy's proud owner, stood beside me as his goat sniffed his manicured shrubs. "She's gonna wreck your yard," I said, sipping lemonade. Paul exhaled. "At this point, Lucas, I don't care." We watched Miss Daisy zero in on Vanessa's prized roses, munching with glee. Vanessa's muffled yells from inside were the cherry on top. As the last farmers packed up and the sun sank, the HOA's perfect facade lay littered with goat tracks and stray hay. Kids chased a loose goat, laughing, while Travis counted his cash, grinning like a bandit. Vanessa's door flew open again. I braced for a tirade, but she beelined for Paul, waving the inspector's notice. "This is your fault," she hissed. "Do you know how much these fines will cost?" "Paul, unfazed, took the paper, folded it neatly, and tucked it away. We'll figure it out. Her eye twitched. We. He glanced at the goat, the auction mess, then her. Something in him snapped free. Yeah, we. I'm done, Vanessa. Tired of you running everything. House, bills, HOA, even the damn fence, while everyone hates you for it. Silence hung heavy. She stared, speechless, then looked at her ruined yard, the chaos she'd fought to banish. Defeated,